Hey, my name's Ian Begley. You're watching the NBA Exchange with Dexter Henry.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the NBA Exchange. We're doing this a little bit later than we normally do because I had to move some things around to get my guest, who was so kind to give me some time to join me a little bit later in the afternoon. You know, we normally do this a lot earlier, but he was kind enough to give me some time. It is Gary Washburn. He is NBA writer for the Boston Globe. Known him a long time, did a lot of videos with him back in the day with the Boston Globe. We're going to talk a bit about the Celtics. They've had a crazy turnaround. We'll talk a lot about that. Gary joins me now. Gary, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How's it going?
Good, man. Good. Always good to see you. You know, I love your work and everything you've done. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Theis up in Boston. The Celtics, they've had an interesting turnaround, Gary. Started off the season slow, but now they've won 10 out of their last 11. And I saw this tweet from you recently. In all their wins, they've never trailed. So they've been really impressive. How shocked have you been with their play recently this month in February?
Yeah, it's been really surprising considering they literally were just so up and down, so inconsistent. They were 18 and 21 at one point, like risking not even making the play-in tournament. And now they're the 6th seed. They have a chance to really gain some ground on the teams ahead of them. So it was a real shock. I mean, they were playing good in certain spurts, and then they'd have a really bad quarter, a really bad first quarter, but the last three. So they just needed to put it together. But the fact they put it together, they've gotten completely healthy, no COVID issues, no real nagging injuries, and that they're playing really, really good defense. And this is what the new coach, Udoka, has preached since he took the job, was defense first. We're going to win. We're not going to win games pretty. We're not going to be the Warriors. We're going to win games with defense and timely scoring, scoring when we need to, putting the ball in the bucket, but also stopping people. And it's just happened to work at this point. Obviously, they haven't played the greatest competition, catching Brooklyn twice when they really aren't themselves, playing teams shorthanded. But you got to play who's on your schedule, and you got to beat them. The NBA is not a league that everybody can beat everybody. So you got to commend them for being this hot.
The defense, I think a lot of Celtics fans with Udoka coming in expected it to be good, right, Gary? But the offense has been, like you said, timely. That's been it. Has there been anything else that you've seen the key to this turnaround? Is it chemistry? Is there anything more with the Celtics that have been key to this turnaround that we've seen this month?
Good health, obviously. They've had some injuries. Marcus Smart out. Earlier, Jaylen Brown missed some time with a hamstring injury. They've, Jayson Tatum missed time with COVID. They had everybody damn near on their team struck with the Omicron variant. And then, just nagging injuries, and then lack of chemistry, lack of practice time, all the quote unquote, you would say those are excuses because every team is really dealing with that. But they just were really bitten by that. But now that they're completely healthy, guys are buying into the system. Guys are buying into what Ime Udoka is saying. I just think it just flipped the script. I mean, they went from an 18 and 21 team, and now they're 36 and 26. So they have just done, just tremendous things, and they still have a chance to get maybe one of the top 4 seeds. That's not over. And they've played well this season against good competition. They've beaten Miami twice. They've beaten Chicago. They've beaten Milwaukee. They have a chance against the good teams. They just got to play like it throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, they got to. Right now, they currently sit at 6th in the East. They've moved up. This was a team that one time was out of the play-in tournament, 10th. Gary talked about them at 18 and 21. Now, they also made some acquisitions, Gary, at the trade deadline, getting Derek White, getting Daniel Theis, bringing them back. Obviously, those guys seem to fit in really well with what Udoka wants to do. How do you think they help them down the stretch of the season?
Yeah, I think White's someone that they really have been targeting, and he's like a team guy, right? He comes from a system in San Antonio where there's really no superstars. I mean, that team has been built for 25 years on teamwork, on everybody pitching in, no one being, the super duper star for all the way back from Robinson and Duncan and Parker and Ginobili and even, the Kawhi days to now. So he comes from a system where he's really contributed and he's not been the star. And here they bring him off the bench. He comes in as kind of like a sixth starter and a guy who can play down the stretch of close games, so he can be in that front lineup, when they're trying to close out a game, and he can shoot the ball, he can play defense, he can do the little things. So I think that's been really important. That was a big acquisition for them. Daniel Theis kind of offers some, backup to, Robert Williams and Al Horford at the center position. He's a guy who knows the system, can hit the pick and pop a little bit, can give the hard foul, can rebound, do a little bit of everything. So when you have a chance to add a quality center like Theis, in addition to Derek White, those are two good acquisitions that they made the trade deadline. That didn't necessarily make the biggest headlines. It wasn't necessarily the biggest moves of the trade deadline, but for them, those were good moves.
Yeah, I think they were. And Derek White, as you said, a guy that can just fit in really nice. He knows how to play without stars, and now playing with two top players in Brown and Tatum there. When we talk about the coach, Ime Udoka, and his impact, Gary, should more people be talking about him as coach of the year? Because this is a pretty impressive turnaround, as you said, from 18 and 21 to where they are now. Do you think he should be getting more in the conversation for coach of the year?
I think if they were to get the number 1 or 2 seed, maybe, right? But right now, Taylor Jenkins in Memphis, with how well the Memphis Grizzlies have done, Monty Williams with how well the Phoenix has kind of not missed a beat from last year's NBA Finals. I think those are the two leaders in the pack. Ime, would you vote him third? Yeah, I think definitely he's someone who could deserve consideration for being on the ballot. Especially, I think it all depends on how they finish. And remember, they're 18 and 21. But if they turn around and grab like a number 2 seed in the East and they finish with a really impressive run, yeah, I'd say he's someone in consideration. But I think you've got to definitely look down in Memphis at what Taylor Jenkins is doing with those Grizzlies, because remember, Dexter, they haven't been healthy. They still missing Dylan Brooks. They missed Ja for a minute. They have not been completely healthy all year. And this is a team that's grabbed that number 3 seed and is pushing the Warriors for the 2nd seed. So I think jumping from, let's say, I think they were the 9th seed last year and they ended up winning the play-in game and losing the first round. So going from the 9 to the 3, I think that's coach of the year material.
Yeah, pretty impressive jump there for the Grizzlies, but Udoka doing pretty impressive work with the Celtics. So whenever I've talked about the Celtics the last couple of years, Gary, right, it's always been, do Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, do they fit? Do they work together? But now they've been playing well, despite the schedule and what you said. That noise is sort of quieted. Where are we now with how these two guys fit? Because I think they can be dangerous, considering they've had a lot of time together. They've had some deep playoff runs together, as you know. Where's the noise around these two and their pair and how they can work going forward into the future?
Well, I think the noise has been quieted. I don't think either of the two were making the noise, right? Neither was saying, get me out of here, or I don't like playing with this guy. It was not either from either of them. It was from the fact that they were struggling early, and people say, well, they play the same position. Well, they're too much alike. Well, they don't help their teammates. They don't make their teammates better, or they don't help each other. And I think that's a process. And I think what Ime Udoka has done this season is pulled those two guys aside and said, listen, we need to make two guys need to make each other better. Rebound the ball, pass the ball, set pick and rolls, do little things to make the life easier for other guys on the team. That's how you become a top, player in this league. How come you become a perennial all-star and all-NBA is doing more than just scoring, because a lot of guys can score in this league. You need to be like a Jokic. You need to be a guy like a Giannis who fills the stat sheet with rebounds and assists and steals, plays defense. So I think those guys have taken that advice to heart and are doing just that, becoming more playmakers. I've seen both of those guys, especially Tatum, be more of a playmaker this year, pass the ball and not do the whole Kobe thing. I think people, Jason's idol, favorite all-time player is Kobe, and they worked together in the summer, like a year or two before Kobe tragically passed away. So there was some real influence there on Tatum. And people think that, well, he was trying to be too much like Kobe. There's one Kobe. You can't do the pump fake fade away in the face of a 7-footer like Kobe can. Just do what you do. And I think Tatum got accused of that. And so instead of that, he's now passing the ball. He's now taking the quality shot. He's now attacking the rim more. And the same with Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is attacking the rim more, not relying as much on the three-pointer, has mastered the mid-range. So those two guys working together, and I've always said, you get two all-stars, you don't break those guys up unless they want to be broken up. Unless you got a James Harden situation, a Ben Simmons situation, Anthony Davis, where the guy comes to the manager and says, I want out. You don't break up two all-stars unless you get another all-star back.
Right.
Okay?
Which isn't easy to do. That.
Most
right.
teams would be doing backflips to have two all-stars, 25 and under on their team with control for the next 3 to 4 years. So the Celtics aren't going to do anything to break those guys up.
Yeah, they're clearly they're making it work. And as I said before, that noise is quieted down, and you bring up the great points about how they've become both better playmakers, and that was some of the focus from Udoka this season. The offense for the Celtics, the defense has been pretty good all year, Gary. They've been pretty solid there. We talked about the offense recently. Do you think this offensive play is sustainable where you're seeing guys hit timely shots? It's not just Marcus Smart hitting the big shot, but everybody's getting involved. Do you think this offensive play is sustainable for the Celtics?
I think it is, Dexter. I think that they could use another offensive player, and we'll see what happens in the buyout market, because you've got Tatum and Brown, and then you've got, Smart, who's inconsistent, but when he can knock down the three when he's on. But there's times that he's not on, as we've known. If you followed the Celtics for years, Smart is a very streaky shooter. You don't want to rely on him to score. And then you got Robert Williams, who gives you easy buckets, something they hadn't had in years, someone you just throw the ball up at the rim and dunk it. Al Horford's been a key part. When the shot's going down for him, the Celtics are even a better team. He struggled offensively this year, struggled with the three-point shot. And then Derek White coming off the bench. But you look, and Grant Williams has also been a big aid, big help. He has become one of the better three-point shooters in the league. But if you're talking about championship caliber, you want someone who come off the bench and give you some buckets, okay? And there's guys going to be out there probably available that the Celtics can get, or you want to depend. Do you want to depend on second-year guard Peyton Pritchard to be that guy, that backup point guard who's going to get open shots? Do you want to depend on him to knock those down? Or do you want to get someone who's kind of a hired gun, someone who knows how to score? And I think that's what this team needs to make a big-time playoff run, is that one guy, like I would say, not now, but Jamal Crawford, a guy who can come off the bench and get your buckets and knows how to score, get to the free throw line. That's what they need.
That's the kind of play you see them needing. Now, you talked about them getting to that next level, right? Making that championship run, deep playoff run, which they've had a deep run before. The Celtics have different group. But how much noise do you think they can make this year, Gary? As they are right now, they sit at 6. You talked about they have a chance to move up to one of the top 4 spots. Definitely possible. But how good do you think this team could be this year, finishing the second half, going into the playoffs?
I mean, defense travels, right? So I think they can make a run at the conference finals. Can they beat Milwaukee, or can they beat Miami or Chicago in the 7-game series, or a revamped Brooklyn team? I think that's yet to be seen. This team has not yet played a long, grueling playoff series. Okay. Can they beat Giannis and those guys 4 out of 7 games? Can they beat the Bulls with DeMar playing MVP caliber and Zach LaVine healthy and Vucevic and all those guys? That's a good question. I think they can go to the conference finals if they're fortunate and things go right for them. I don't know. I think they need another piece or two to get over that top, because I think if you look at around the East, Milwaukee just picked up Javon Carter. The Nets have just picked up Goran Dragic. Philadelphia added Willie Cauley-Stein, because we haven't even talked about the Sixers and how they're going to look with James Harden. So you put those teams there, you got to give those teams a nod over the Celtics, simply because they've done it before and they have the star power. Can the Celtics be like it's not a great example, but the 04 Pistons, where they just kind of beat you with defense and they kind of sneak up on you? Maybe so. I don't think it's a great shot, but I do think their ceiling, to me right now, is the conference finals.
Conference finals is their ceiling right now. Since you are a national NBA writer, you talked about some other stuff. Let me just take you around a little bit before we get you out of here. What did you think of the Simmons-Harden deal with Brooklyn and Philly? Since they're in the division with the Celtics, what did you think of that? Was there a clear winner, or did both teams win there?
I think both teams won. I mean, I think Philadelphia, remember, they had won and been successful without Simmons, but they also gave up Curry and Andre Drummond.
Yep.
So I think Philadelphia might have hurt themselves. I think you can give Brooklyn maybe the advantage but it all depends on how Simmons looks. Simmons might be a shell of himself for the first 20, 25 games. We do not know. We do not know what mental state he's in, what physical state he's in. He looks okay on the end of the bench, but we don't know because we haven't seen Ben Simmons since Game 7 against Atlanta when he passed up that slam dunk and passed it and then all of a sudden went into a shell and said he didn't want to play for the Sixers anymore. So I don't think there's a winner at this point because we haven't seen Harden. Harden is supposed to debut very soon. Friday against the Timberwolves is supposed to be his debut. We'll see how that looks, and we'll see if Philadelphia is hurt by losing Curry. I watched Curry the other night against the Celtics. Curry is a shot maker. I mean, that dude has gotten so much better from his early years when he was bouncing around the league. I mean, he's not his brother. He'll never be his brother, but my goodness, Curry is a shooter, man. I mean, he can hit that mid-range, and that gives Brooklyn another weapon. And, with Kyrie and with Durant coming, and let's see what happens with these COVID situations if Kyrie can play full-time in the city or whatever. Yeah. But I don't think there's a winner yet because there's so many variables to it. What kind of shape is Harden in? When does Simmons come back? Do Drummond and Curry really help Brooklyn? What will Philadelphia look like without having Curry as a shooter and another big man in the paint? Will they, will some of the other guys step up? So I don't think there's a winner yet. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but I don't think there's a winner yet because there's so many variables. We have yet to see either player on the floor for the team, right?
Right. We don't know. Right.
We don't know yet because we have no clue as to whether Harden's in his, later Houston shape where he's got the little beer belly and the party look, just got out the club, or is Simmons quite right? Is he right? Is he ready to play a high pressure games and play in a city like New York, where if he misses free throws, it's going to be on the back page? I mean, he didn't jump from Philadelphia to Minnesota or Charlotte. He jumped to a tougher market, or equally as tough on their athletes. So let's see how Simmons handles that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I think you're right about that, right? We could analyze the trade all we want, but there's still so many question marks surrounding both teams in terms of who really won. And there's a lot that has to play out. With that being said, in the East, I want to ask you about around the league too, but in the East, who do you like as the favorite to come out the East right now? Who's your favorite? Because I think at the beginning of the year it was Brooklyn for a lot of people, but as you said, they have a lot of question marks. Who's your favorite to come out the East, Gary?
I'm going to say the defending champs. I'll say Milwaukee Bucks. I mean,
all right,
until they're beaten, Giannis, Middleton, Holiday. I mean, I think that they're very good. And when they get everything together, I think they're the favorites. You got to knock off the champs. I haven't seen the team in the East because they're all beating each other. They're all going through their ups and downs. Miami's yet to be really healthy. Chicago is up and down. Cleveland's starting to slip a little bit. We'll see what happens with them. Philadelphia and Brooklyn, as we've just talked about, we have no idea how they're going to look. You're thinking Brooklyn's going to make this real meteoric rise, but Brooklyn's in the play-in right now, which means they got to win one or maybe two games, then get a Miami or a Milwaukee or somebody in the first round, win that series, and then keep it moving. Like, that's a lot. So I'm going to say the Bucks until someone steps up and shows me that they can beat the Bucks in 7 games. Giannis is a monster, and he's gotten even better than last year. Top 75 player. I think the youngest guy on the top 75 team, right? All-time 75 team. So until someone's shows me they can beat Milwaukee 4 out of 7, the Bucks are the favorites.
I think that's fair. What about MVP? Who do you got for MVP right now? We're hearing it's a 2-man race between Jokic and Embiid. Who do you have? Because I feel, Gary, a little bit with Jokic, he's kind of getting disrespected. He's gotten an even better season than last year, right? And some people are forgetting about him at all. Who do you have winning MVP?
Well, Dexter, do not forget
Okay.
DeMar DeRozan.
True.
Okay?
True.
Chicago, remember, as you've known, we followed the Bulls. The Bulls ain't been right since Derrick Rose left, right? They had a good run when Derrick Rose was there. Then they left, and they've been for years trying to find that combination to be competitive and be significant again. They get DeRozan, and boom, they're suddenly one of the top seeds in the East. He is going nuts lately, and he's carrying that team because Levine's been out. Vucevic has had his time with injury. Kobe White missed a part of the season. So, to me, you got to give DeRozan some love for the MVP. Jokic, I mean, what more can you say about him? Carrying a team with major injuries, Porter and Murray both out. You know, he is such a great all-around player. And then Embiid is carrying the 76ers, staying healthy, staying on the floor, playing every game, and doing what he's supposed to be doing. So it's a three-man race at this point, I think. I mean, to me, I probably vote for Embiid or DeRozan, not because anything that Jokic didn't do, but
Right.
I just think sometimes with DeRozan being the other side of 30, a guy that people thought had been losing it a little bit in San Antonio, kind of lost a little bit of his luster when he got to the Spurs, and it was like, and then he goes to the Bulls, and so, no, I'm still a superstar. I'm a 5-time All-Star, and I'm carrying this team to the next level. So I think you got those three guys. But if I had to vote today, it would be either Embiid or DeRozan, and it all depends on how the season ends. I'm gonna wait till the last minute to make my vote. I'm not gonna vote now.
Right.
I'm not gonna vote. I'm gonna see where each of these players take their teams, especially even Denver. Denver's in the playoffs without two superstars in Murray and two of their main cogs in Murray and Porter. I mean, that says something about Jokic, the way he deals it. So if he gets votes, there's no loser here. Whoever wins, I think, deserves it.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how you vote on this one. I think you're right. It's going to come down to probably the final weeks. Last thing before I get you out of here, who wins the title? I know it's early. I know we haven't seen playoff seedings, but if you had to put some money on it, who do you see winning this title? Who do you think is the best team in the league right now?
I'm going to say the Phoenix Suns. I think that they're a team of destiny. They have not slipped since the finals. You know, Milwaukee's gone through their troubles, and, you know, Golden State's made a resurrection. We'll see what happens when they get Wiseman back. But Phoenix seems like a team. They're a machine, man. Like, they're just a total machine. They just methodically beat you. Everybody knows their role. Chris Paul, and we'll see what happens with his injury, but I think he'll be back for the playoffs, so I think they'll be okay. They'll manage or whatever. I think when they get him back, and they got Booker, and they got Aiden, and they got Johnson, and they got Bridges, and they got all these guys that know, and Crowder, guys that just know their role under a great coach. I think it's their year. I think they're a team of destiny. I think that they've learned from last year. They kind of let that title slip away against the Bucks. They had it, and then they let it slip away. I think they learned from that experience, and I think they raised the gold ball, and I think the championship is going to Arizona.
Arizona and Phoenix. You heard it from Gary Washburn giving you guys the pick. Gary, thank you. You're great with all the work you do covering the NBA and for the Boston Globe. I know you took some time to talk to me from Detroit. Stay warm there in Detroit. I'm sure it's not warm at all. And
No.
you know, yeah, and it's Detroit, so I know you want to get back home.
Yeah.
I know you want to. That is Gary Washburn from the Boston Globe, NBA writer. Gary, thanks for joining me as usual. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
No problem. Again, that is Gary Washburn. He joined us here on the NBA Exchange. We're so grateful to have him join us there. We're going to take a quick break. When I come back, we are going to do something a little bit different around betting. You know, our partner for a lot of this, we've been promoting our code for weeks, is PrizePicks. We're going to talk about some of the best over-under picks that you could make tonight for some player props. I know some of you like to do that out there. It's Friday night. Why don't we do something a little bit different in terms of player props around PrizePicks? But first, a word from our partners, PrizePicks. Are you looking for a better way to play player props or daily fantasy sports? Well, look no further than PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the leading over-under daily fantasy game. Why? Because it's so easy to use and win. You can make your picks in under 30 seconds and win up to 10 times your money in one day. Right now, we have a special offer for our viewers and listeners of the NBA Exchange. All you got to do is sign up now and use the promo code NBAEX. PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Yep, that's right. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. So join the over 150,000 others who found a better way to play and download the PrizePicks app today. That's right. Use that promo code from PrizePicks, NBAEX. Get that first deposit up to $100. Easy money. It gets that match. So it's a pretty good deal for you out there. I've been trying to promote that to our followers, listeners of the show on this podcast. Encourage you to do that. You know, we're trying to help you out, get in the game and play a little bit. But speaking of PrizePicks, there's some good over-unders I want to touch tonight in terms of this. You know, from time to time, I like to dabble in a little bit of the player props. And when I do this and I look at player props, I'm always looking at matchups, right? Like who's really got a good advantage. If it's rebounds, it's a big man going up against a weaker front line that doesn't rebound the ball well. Does this team shoot poorly, which gives this person a lot of opportunities for rebounds? There's a lot of information you want to look at. Also, one of the things that's really dope on PrizePicks is they'll show you the history of this person hitting the over-under at this number, which might influence the way you want to put some money down. So it's something you want to look at. The information's here. We try to look at the information and, you know, come to a decision on how that best can help us. Now, looking at some stuff tonight, I even mentioned this with Gary when we were talking. We talked about the Sixers a little bit. James Harden makes his Sixers debut tonight. He will be playing with the Sixers against the Minnesota Timberwolves. PrizePicks, they got it set at 21.5 points for James Harden to score. Now, look, we know James Harden can score when he plays and he wants to, and it depends on, like Gary said, whether he's in shape or not. A lot of it depends on that. We will see how he looks. So though I have this feeling he'll be a little bit motivated to play in a Sixers uniform. However, one of the things I like to always caution against is when somebody's had a long layoff, and Harden has. Look, let's keep it real. He checked out on the Nets a couple of weeks ago. He hasn't played since well before the All-Star break. It's been about almost 3 weeks since he's played really a meaningful game where he's done anything. 21.5 is something Harden usually is able to do, but for me, this is take the under. I do not like him to do that. I think he's going to have feel his way around with his new teammates, how he fits into the offense with Joel Embiid. Know that he's a gifted scorer. There is no doubting that at all whatsoever. But Harden still hasn't looked great this year. He hasn't looked right, a step slow. And again, I think he's sort of feeling his way out here. So for me, personally, I got to be out on this one right here with Harden over the 21.5 points. Now, in the last couple of games where he's played, 3 of the last 5 games he's played, he has hit over that 21.5 points. You see a very low output, which I believe was that 4-point game against Sacramento, the last game that he actually played in. Yes, that was back on February 2nd. So, folks, hasn't played since February 2nd. The 4-point output there. The only other time he didn't score over 21.5 is when he had 13, actually against these Minnesota Timberwolves. Not saying that they had him figured out, but with the layoff, last time he scored, he had 4 points. I could see Harden scoring somewhere between 16 and 18 points. Don't really like him to score to 21.5 here. So I'm going to take the under on James Harden here. That's what I'm going to do in terms of that tonight. Now, my second one that I have involves rebounding with a guard who is known to get some triple doubles, and that's DeJounte Murray. PrizePicks has it set at 7.5 rebounds over under. They're playing the Washington Wizards. Not a good defensive team, not really a good rebounding team. They've had some injury issues at center with Daniel Gafford out. Montrezl Harrell was shipped out at the trade deadline to Charlotte. So not a strong rebounding team. And this is one where I would say if you're going to put a little more money down on Murray, yeah, I could see him getting a triple-double tonight. But in terms of the boards, the over-unders, yeah, I like Murray to grab 8 or more boards here. I can see that here tonight. We know he's aggressive. He's a really good rebounder. Again, Washington, not a good rebounding team. So I like this here. This is one I really like for Murray to do. He's covered right around that line of 7.5 for the last couple of games. Now, he hasn't been over 7.5, 8 rebounds or more in the last 4 games. He hasn't done that since February 11th against Atlanta, interesting enough, who has some decent rebounders on that team, and he got 10 boards there. But Washington also, here's the thing, guys, not a good offensive team right now. They've struggled. There will be no Bradley Beal. There is no Kristaps Porzingis. I see a lot of opportunities for missed shots and defensive rebounds for DeJounte Murray to corral. So I love this. This is my lock pick of the night in terms of prize picks. Give me DeJounte Murray over 7.5 points. Definitely there. And a reminder, you want to get in on the prize picks game, look at the prize picks code, NBA EX. Sign up with that. Match your first deposit up to $100. So definitely take a look at that. Now, my last one of the night is one of my favorite players. Everybody knows me to watch in the league. That is Luka Doncic. And this has to go with the three-pointers. Luka Doncic, we know he could jack up a bunch of them. A lot of those step-back threes, we see him take that. 2.5 3-pointers made versus Utah. And here's why I like this. Utah, we know about how good Rudy Gobert is, but we also know where Utah struggles, and a lot of that is on the perimeter. They can struggle a ton defending really good players like Doncic, really dynamic players on the perimeter, which makes you think Doncic is going to get some blow-bys, but Doncic is always going to get a couple of open threes, and late in the game, he tends to have the tendency to shoot a lot of step-back threes and make some of those, even against some tough defenses. I think he'll get a lot of good looks in this game. We know Doncic attempts a lot, over 6 threes a game. I think he'll make at least 3 of those tonight. I love this matchup for Doncic pretty much, and I think that this is one you should want to look at too. Now, in the last 5 games, Doncic has hit 3 or more threes 3 of his last 5 games, okay? And he's had some big games. He was balling before the break, right? He had a 51 piece, 50 piece. I think it was another one where he was right at 49. So he's had some big games, as you see, February 10th against the Clippers, 7 threes. February 12th, he had 6 threes against the Clippers, and then against the Pelicans, which he killed them, 7 threes. So this is a matchup that I think is not one that should be tough for Doncic to get off the threes. I think he'll hit them. I think he can cook against the Jazz tonight. So I like this. But my really big lock I love tonight is I really love that DeJounte Murray pick over the 7.5 rebounds if you're going to do that with prize picks. So I think those are ones that you definitely want to look at. So just to recap for everybody so they can know what is going on, you want to look at James Harden. I got him under 21.5 points, okay? James Harden, don't think he's going to come out and have a big game. He could prove me wrong, but I don't like him there. I'm going with the under for the 21.5 points. DeJounte Murray over the 7.5 rebounds. Love his opportunity to get a lot of boards against the Washington Wizards. And Doncic, I love his opportunity to feast on the perimeter and get a lot of threes. I think he can get 3 threes or more against the Utah Jazz tonight. So those are my picks. Once again, we got to remind y'all, we're helping y'all out, man, here. Help us out if you want to. We're trying to help you out. Prize Picks code is NBAEX. First deposit that you put down gets matched up to $100. That's what Prize Picks will do for you. Really good show today. Different time for us to do this at 4 o'clock, a little bit later on a Friday afternoon. But again, I'm so grateful for my guy, Gary Washburn, who I've known for years at the Boston Globe, for taking the time to join with me, talk a little Celtics, talk a little NBA. If you missed it, came late to the conversation, this will be archived. You can watch anytime on the Backpack Broadcasting YouTube channel. Also, you can check out the podcast, the audio version, which is up on all digital streaming platforms. I'm Dexter Henry. It's been a great week coming back to the NBA Exchange after the All-Star break. There'll be a lot to talk about next week. February will be ending on Monday. We're into March. Unbelievably, we are headed towards the playoffs. Unbelievably, most teams have anywhere between 25 to 23 games left. So we are into the stretch. As Gary said, there's still a lot to be decided in terms of awards. If you're thinking about future bets, we'll talk about that over the next month or so. A lot still to be decided, a lot to be discussed as we head to one of my favorite times of the year, which is spring, the postseason around the NBA. Honestly, man, I just can't wait. Once again, special thank you to my guest, Gary Washburn, who was great today to join us once again. I know we'll have him back to hopefully talk some more Celtics and other things around the NBA. We thank you, the subscribers, the listeners. Hit that subscribe button on the Backpack Broadcasting YouTube channel. Also, hit the subscribe button. Follow the podcast in any of your digital streaming platforms. And, use that code, NBAEX, for Prize Picks. I'm Dexter Henry. Until next time, we'll see you on Monday on the NBA Exchange. Peace and enjoy the basketball.